CDL disqualifications. General. You may not drive a commercial motor vehicle if you are disqualified for any reason. Alcohol, leaving the scene of an accident, and commission of a felony. It is illegal to operate a CMV if your blood alcohol concentration is 0.4% or more. If you operate a CMV, you shall be deemed to have given your consent to alcohol testing. You will lose your CDL for at least 1 year for a first offense for driving a CMV if your blood alcohol concentration is greater than 0.4%, driving a CMV under the influence of alcohol, refusing to undergo blood alcohol testing, driving a CMV while under the influence of a controlled substance, leaving the scene of an accident involving a CMV, committing a felony involving the use of a CMV, driving a CMV when the CDL is suspended, causing a fatality through negligent operation of a CMV. You will lose your CDL for at least 3 years if the offense occurs while you are operating a CMV that is placarded for hazardous materials. You will lose your CDL for life for a second offense. You will lose your CDL for life if you use a CMV to commit a felony involving controlled substances. You will be put out of service for 24 hours if you have any detectable amount of alcohol under 0.4%. Serious traffic violations. Serious traffic violations are excessive speeding, 15 miles an hour or more above the posted speed limit, reckless driving, improper or erratic lane changes, following a vehicle too closely, traffic offenses committed in a CMV in connection with fatal traffic accidents, driving a CMV without obtaining a CDL or having a CDL in the driver's possession, and having a CMV without the proper class of CDL and or endorsements. You will lose your CDL for at least 60 days if you have committed 2 serious traffic violations within a 3-year period involving a CMV, for at least 120 days for 3 or more serious traffic violations within a 3-year period involving a CMV. Violations of out-of-service orders. You will lose your CDL for at least 90 days if you have committed your first violation of an out-of-service order, for at least 1 year if you have committed 2 violations of an out-of-service order in a 10-year period, for at least 3 years if you have committed 3 or more violations of an out-of-service order in a 10-year period. Railroad highway grade crossing violations. You will lose your CDL for at least 60 days for your first violation, for at least 120 days for your second violation within a 3-year period, for at least 1 year for your third violation within a 3-year period. These violations include violation of a federal, state, or local law or regulation pertaining to one of the following 6 offenses at railroad highway grade crossing. For drivers who are not required to always stop, failing to stop before reaching the crossing if the tracks are not clear. For drivers who are not required to always stop, failing to slow down and check that the tracks are clear of an approaching train. For drivers who are always required to stop, failing to stop before driving onto the crossing. For all drivers, failing to have sufficient space to drive completely through the crossing without stopping. For all drivers, failing to obey a traffic control device or the direction of an enforcement official at the crossing. For all drivers, failing to negotiate a crossing because of insufficient undercarriage clearance. Hazardous materials endorsement background check and disqualifications. If you require a hazardous materials endorsement, you will be required to submit your fingerprints and be subject to a background check. You will be denied or you will lose your hazardous materials endorsement if you are not a lawful permanent resident of the United States, renounce your United States citizenship, are wanted or under indictment for certain felonies, have a conviction in military or civilian court for certain felonies, have been adjudicated as lacking mental capacity or have been involuntarily committed to a mental health facility as specified in 49 CFR 1572.109, are considering to pose as a security threat as determined by the Transportation Security Administration. The background check procedures vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Your licensing agency will provide you with all the information you need to complete the required TSA background check procedures. Traffic violations in your personal vehicle. The Motor Carrier Safety Improvement Act of 1999 requires a CDL holder to be disqualified from operating a commercial motor vehicle if the CDL holder has been convicted of certain types of moving violations in their personal vehicle. If your privilege to operate your personal vehicle is revoked, canceled, or suspended due to violations of traffic control laws other than parking violations, you will also lose your CDL driving privileges. If your privilege to operate your personal vehicle is revoked, canceled, or suspended due to alcohol, controlled substances, or felony violations, you will lose your CDL for 1 year. If you are convicted of a second violation in your personal vehicle or CMV, you will lose your CDL for life. If your license to operate your personal vehicle is revoked, canceled, or suspended, you may not obtain a hardship license to operate a CMV.